Welcome back to Whistle Watch, the hot seat. Now refereeing has its pressure, the hotness of refereeing a scrum, but there's nothing like the pressure of having to cook in the kitchen and getting that perfect for the clientele. Wales' top chef, Tommy Heaney.
Yeah, from washing dishes in Maryland in the States to running one of Cardiff's best restaurants, Tommy's journey is pretty huge. Travel, entrepreneurship, TV. Today, we're diving into the pressure behind the plates. All right, Tommy, welcome to Nigel's farm. A bit like me, you're definitely not dressed appropriately. Right, so you're from Crumlin, near Belfast. How does a lad like you end up in Maryland in the States to begin with? Talk us through that and the start of your career.
Yeah, it's one of them ones, I think a lot of chefs kind of had the same thing, you know, it was, you're going through school, you're not really sure what you want to do, you end up in the kitchen. So yeah, growing up, Belfast, Crumlin, obviously massive into, you know, Gaelic football and
Football?
Gaelic football.
Oh, Gaelic football, that's all right, that's all right.
So, and then, you know, found myself, you know, probably in the wrong crowd, mixing with the wrong people, got myself in a bit of trouble. My mum at the time was a nursery school teacher, and she's kind of looking at me going, listen, you know, I'm looking after everybody else's kids, and, you know, I mean, you're getting yourself into trouble. It doesn't look good to me. So at the time, my uncle had a restaurant out in the States. So in the summer, she said, oh, listen, we're going to send you out there. You're going to keep out of trouble, keep quiet, and give us a bit of a break. So that was it. Went out there. I think I was either 13 or 13, 14.
You would have started off then peeling the spuds, washing the dishes?
Yeah, just doing anything that they asked me to do. So I jumped in there. It was as punishment, to be fair. So I jumped in there, washing dishes, and done that for... And again, even washing dishes, I was like... You know, I took pride in it.
Yeah.
You know, I wanted to kind of be, you know, be good at whatever I was doing. And from there, then I'm kind of looking at the other chefs, and I'm getting interested then in, like, you know, even just the salad section or whatever it is, and it just looks so creative, and that's kind of how I got involved in it.
Right, so Tommy, essentially, those skills you picked up in the States, you came back then to Ireland at 18 and trained under the guidance of a guy called Tony Hughes. Tell us a bit more about that.
Well, as I say, when I was out in the States, I was washing dishes and things like that, and then, you know, how I kind of then started cooking was one of the chefs didn't show up, and I kind of got thrown into the deep end, and then from that, I came back to Ireland, and I had somebody recommended a chef at the time up outside Crumlin called Martin Hughes. So I went to Martin, asked him for a job. He didn't have a job, so he sent me to his brother Tony, which was probably about a good hour away from where I lived. So it was a bit like, oh, do I want to... But anyway, I got up there, and Tony was an absolute genius. I probably caught him at the wrong side of his career. He was 60 or whatever he was, and, you know, he was captain of the culinary team in Northern Ireland, and then he kind of introduced me into competitions and things like that. And, you know, I could have sat there talking to Tony for hours about food. I learned stuff working with Tony that you don't learn now. You know, all the old school kind of stuff, the pastelage, the food, all the stuff that just doesn't get talked about these days. You know.
They always say that the chefs are always big personalities, and they. Are you the same?
I don't know. I mean, I think anybody that's worked for me...
Not big personality, but I mean...
I think anybody that's kind of worked for me, I think people probably have their different opinions, and depending on how, you know, what kind of direction they've taken after me. But I try to, you know, kind of direct people as best I can. I kind of try to manage everybody differently and on their different personalities. And
because you're always under pressure, aren't you, in the kitchen, all the time. There's no sort of...
I mean, I look back now, and I have changed. I'm actually having this conversation today. I've changed massively over the last 10 years, or probably since owning your own business as well.
In what way?
As in, you know, when you're young and you're coming into chefing, it's, you know, you're ambitious. You want to be at the top. You want to be the boss. You want to be the exact chef. And, you know, I look back now, and I probably should have slowed that down a bit. You know, maybe worked our way through different kitchens, learned under some amazing people where I was kind of like self-taught and, you know, pushing myself on my own. And maybe I just could have slowed it down a bit. I mean, I was exec chef of a hotel at, you know, up in the Lake District when I was 23. You know, and that's
quite young, isn't it?
Well, not the smartest idea, let's put it like that. But, you know, we done that. And then when you take over your own kitchen and you open your own restaurant, it's completely different pressures. It's completely different mindsets. As in, like, you know, it changes from, you know, I want to be the best chef in you know, the UK or whatever, you're kind of, you know, not saying you'll ever achieve that, but you've got to set yourself goals. To then going, I got to make sure the staff are paid, I got to make sure the doors are open. So it's kind of a different mindset.
Yeah, different pressures, certainly when you're cooking and then having your own business. And we'll come on to that. I just wanted to touch on your travel experience, because we were lucky with the game to travel. I played across the world with rugby. Nigel, you've refereed around the world. How did that shape you? You know, reading, you've worked in Australia, you've worked in Thailand, and you end up back in Pontcanna in Cardiff. Happy days, same as me. But it's an amazing journey that this career has taken you on. How has that shaped you?
Well, it's one of the things I tell every chef that comes in. You know, you can go anywhere in the world and find a job. You know, it's one of them amazing, you know.
Everyone needs to eat. And
everybody wants to eat, and there's always jobs in it. Yeah. So I'd say going to the States as a young lad, and, you know, come back, and I was working in Belfast a bit, then I decided to get out to Australia. And I learned a completely different way of cooking. You know, in Australia, it's kind of, there's a lot of Asian influence in Australia, which is kind of my style now, I suppose. You know, I like that lighter kind of subtle flavours, but with a big punch. That's kind of where my food goes now. And I wouldn't have learned that only for working out in Australia. Then went from Australia to Thailand, and I came back and ended up in London and in the Lake Districts. And so it's an amazing business to be in. It gives you the opportunity to travel. You know, I know people now that work for me, and they're now up, you know, working in yachts and, you know, traveling the world. And, you know, as I say, there's not many other industries that kind of, you know, can give you that direction.
This chat with us is all about pressure and working under pressure and having to decide an outcome of a game, really, I guess. In that last minute of the game, you're making the decision under huge pressure, get it right, get it wrong, right team wins. Pressure is huge. What would be the pressure in the kitchen then? What is the biggest pressure you feel you're in that kitchen?
Well, I mean, everything's on timings. You know, if somebody comes in, they expect to be in. They expect something on their table at a certain time, and they expect a certain quality. And, you know, if you want to be, you know, I like to think what we do is quite good. So the pressure is to make it good, and also not just on the food and the service, but, you know, the atmosphere. So, and again, like I said, you know, I've kind of changed a lot from when I first opened. It was a lot of shouting and yelling, and, you know, because the pressure is there to make it absolutely perfect. Whereas now I kind of learned that, you know, that's not maybe getting the best out of people. So everybody kind of is getting managed differently. So,
do you perform better under pressure? I mean, you know,
personally speaking, I do, but, you know, people are different.
I'd be the same as you. Who are you? Were you sort of bigger pressure, bigger game?
I was very much kind of pressure as a privilege sort of guy. Like I loved it. I just wanted to ask you, talk about the shouting, and because we've never worked in a kitchen. Ash, I did. I started on
I did.
wash
I
as a
was
kid.
well,
But I think most people have this image of, you know, frying pans going, everyone's chef shouting as soon as you go through the kitchen door. Has it been that way for you? Is it just been carnage in the kitchen? See calmness in the restaurant, but you open the door and it's just bedlam?
You know, I hate saying it because, you know, I look back and think, was I that guy? You know what I mean? But
you were
you know what I mean? And I go, and, you know, I got, you know, chef, you know, my head chef's been with me about 10 years now, and he'd say stuff to me, oh, do you remember you done that? And I was like, no, I don't. And I must have just blanked it out.
Erased it.
You know what I mean? But, you know, and it's, you know, when you're standing there, you know, some chefs are massive, and I'm down here and I'm shouting at them and they're going, you know what I mean? But, yeah, when I first opened Heene's, it was massive pressure, because the pressure was there after, you know, the success we had off the TV and things like that. You know, people were talking about it for months before we opened. So there was a lot of pressure as soon as we opened the door, and there wasn't a 2-week grace where people go, you know, well, it's only been open 2 weeks, let's give it a bit of time and hopefully it can iron out the wrinkles. There wasn't. It had to hit the ground running. And we opened it on, you know, peanuts. We didn't have any financial backers. We done everything ourselves. We launched a quick Kickstarter. Which again, looking back, and that's how naive I was. I thought, you know, I had enough money to do this. I didn't. So we launched a Kickstarter. Off the back of that, it was great because it wasn't asking people for money for nothing. It was, you know, you're almost buying vouchers in advance and paying up front. And if this succeeds, you know, then obviously you'll get your voucher and you get your money back. So again, different pressure. Then it had to succeed.
Yep.
What do you like then on? Because if I got something wrong in a game, I'd be disappointed. I'd get frustrated. But as long as I got that wrong myself, if other people got it wrong, then I would lose a bit of patience, and because I like to sort of, I was in control of what was happening. So how do you deal then with things? Suppliers not supplying their food on time, or somebody else in the kitchen not getting something right, or somebody complaining. So what do you like under that sort of pressure of that?
I think it's part and parcel of what we do. A massive learning curve is getting things wrong. You know what I mean? As long as you bounce back from it. I kind of, and it's easy to get defensive, isn't it? It's easy to say, well, that wasn't right because, somewhere down the line someone messed up, and it's hard to take responsibility for it. But, again, if I get a complaint or a bit of negative feedback, my automatic reaction was to be, well, no, that's not right. Do you know what I mean? But, 2 minutes later, I'll think about it.
Yeah.
And, chefs in the kitchen think, oh, Tommy doesn't care. But for the next 10 minutes, all that's going through my head is, have I got that wrong? You know what I mean? What could I do to make that better? And I think you've got to take it as criticism to make it better. And then even with the younger chefs, if they get something wrong, it's about sitting down with them and saying, right, listen, how have we got that wrong?
Yeah.
And once, yes, acceptable. 2, yeah, okay, maybe. And then 3 times, it's kind of like,
Not
it's
for
starting
you.
to cost me money. Because it's all time and money. And, when we first open again with suppliers, you start to realise you've got to have a really good relationship with your suppliers to get the best. They're proud to supply me what we do, and hopefully they're proud of what we do with it.
Yes.
And if you're shouting and screaming and arguing, then
You'll get the worst batch.
yeah, exactly. And the relationship breaks down, doesn't it?
On the theme of pressure, where in the world have you felt that pressure most? Obviously, if people do expect quality, it's maybe a high price point. Like, is any experiences from your time as a chef where you've been like, wow, this is proper pressure here? Maybe London or
it's different ways, as in, like, I don't necessarily feel pressure in the kitchen when we are flat out. We've been members of staff down and you're having to jump and do different things. I think the biggest pressure is when you open your own business and you're looking at these, your staff are looking at you at the end of the month going, no problems, we're getting paid.
you're not just turning up as a chef and leaving. It's all on you.
Yeah, exactly. And any little thing, like, obviously, not to touch on it too much, but, obviously lockdown was probably the biggest, most pressure I've felt, is how do we kind of get through this? And then as each week goes on, and...
Did you ever think you weren't going to get through it?
I've never really been that type of person to think that way, it's just more of how we're going to get through it. It's a case of, will we? It's what can we do to change? How can we adapt to what we do? And that's what we've done. We've done everything we could do. We've done takeaway boxes. We've done dine-at-home boxes. We've done... and it's almost from my own mentality, to be fair, do you know what I mean? To keep me busy. And
I remember ordering a bit of your food in lockdown.
Oh, you did?
It's very good.
There you are.
hasn't been back since, mate.
3 young kids, mate. Your restaurant's too nice for my kids.
What about the expectations then of, like, the Good British Food Menu and reviews and stuff like that? Did that sort of add more pressure? Do you feel that, or you just feel as long as I give the customers and they enjoy that's what?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely when we done the Great British Menu, you get that extra light where we get noticed. You know what I mean? And I always said, without Great British Menu, I wouldn't have a restaurant because nobody would have a clue who I was. But then it comes to pressure, and the expectations are higher. But I think if you want to be good at what you do, the pressures have to be there and the expectations have to be met. But you've got to also set your own goals and your own expectations. I was always a case of, as I say, I wanted to, be the best I can. And I almost set myself unachievable goals. And I'll continue to do that.
Yeah, let's talk about London. Did you enjoy your time there? I think we all associate London with this carnage.
Do you know what? I did, but I got it completely wrong. I was in Australia and went to Thailand, and Thailand's pretty chilled. And then I've come back and I've went to London, and I didn't have a penny. And you get to London, you go, right, so you've got to put a bond down or your first month's rent, and then we pay your first month and your bond.
Where was your place in London?
Well, I didn't get one.
Okay, all right. Okay.
I got a job, was crashing on somebody's sofa, and then I was like, Joe, I was probably there a few weeks, and then got a call about a place up in the Lake Districts, live-in accommodation, hotel, and again, what I went back on earlier, you know, I was like, the goal was to kind of, you know, step up and, you know, when somebody says, yeah, there's a hotel up here, it's got 100 rooms or whatever it is, 3 different kitchens, can you run it? You know, and you're 23, you're like, yeah, go on, I'll do that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so that's how basically I ended up leaving London, you know, I was only there 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And then went up to the Lake Districts.
Fabulous.
And you opened Heene's. Is it Heene's?
Yep.
Oh, with your own savings?
Yeah, well, I didn't have any savings. I just put everything on the line, remortgaged the house, done everything.
That's pressure.
But again, you know, when I say, you know, I never really thought it was going to fail. You know, and I don't want that to sound arrogant.
No, you had your own quite confidence in your own.
Yeah, it was just I didn't look at it as in like, oh, what if it's not busy? It was a case of no, let's get a restaurant and make it happen. You know, it was, you know, maybe I was young. You know, now I kind of think about things a bit more. You know,
Would you do it now? Or is it the experience of youth?
I'm not in a rush to open up anymore. Let's put it like that.
What are your biggest frustrations now? I say frustrations, biggest challenges you've faced. Obviously, you've talked about the COVID period, but you know, modern day restaurant owner, what are the big challenges facing you at the minute?
I think, as I say, you know, I try not to be too negative or too, you know, I try as best I can to be quite, you know,
but it's not always
positive kind
rosy,
of outlook,
right? It's not
but,
always rosy.
you know, it's possibly the cost of living now. You know, there's not, you know, people aren't spending the money they were.
So you have to adapt to that then?
Of course, 100%. And, you know, it's about, sometimes you got to look at things and go, okay, you know, you're doing certain things because you want to do it, whereas you got to now look and go, well, that's not what the customer wants. So what can we do to change it, but without, the quality still has to be good.
You can't compromise your
Exactly, you can't
core
compromise.
values,
And, you know, we're still associated with what we do is, and like, I want people to come in, have good food, have good service, but I really want people to leave and go, oh, I just had a great night.
Yeah.
You know, the music was good.
Yeah.
You know, it was, and you know, we can do you know, taste the menu and have 15 people in there, but there's no atmosphere with that. You know, I want a full restaurant. I want people, you know, bouncing really, and
You can't referee an international game of rugby anymore on your own. You need a good team around you, the trust, the working together and everything. And I would assume it's the same for you in the kitchen. You're not going to be able to run that kitchen on your own anymore. So
No.
you need a good team. How do you support and sort of deal with the sort of different staff, young chefs coming in, ambitious, you know, I know how to do this, don't you tell me to do, and how do you sort of pull that team together and keep that going then?
well, again, it's like I said earlier. I mean, you've got to manage everybody differently. You know, I know, my head chef, for example. I know if I, you know, tell him direct, this isn't right, you know, and he takes that a lot better than a younger member of staff, where you've got to kind of put your arm around them and say, right, you know, and again, you know, I spend more time with the people I work with when I do my family, you know, and you've got to kind of have that relationship with them, you know. They come out, you know, how was your day off? What did you do? How are you today? You know, this kind of stuff, rather than just, you're here to do a job, get your head down, and that's it. So it's about
Creating that atmosphere, I guess.
yeah, 100%. And you know, people need to be learning, and if they're learning, then you know, they're happy basically. You know, if
They're engaged and they love what
exactly.
they do.
If they're just standing there doing the same thing day in, day out, it just kind of gets a bit boring. You know, and 100% when it gets to the stage where I can't teach somebody anymore, then I'll always say, listen, you know, maybe it's time for you to move on and go to the next kind of chapter in your life, or in your career, sorry, in your life. And you know, I'm really fortunate now where I've built a lot of really good relationships with different chefs around not just the UK, but you know, different parts of the country and different parts of the world. And you know, I can always get somebody a job somewhere else and put them in the right direction. So yeah, it's about surround yourself by the right people, firstly, and yeah, just making sure they're getting as much out of this as I am.
Yeah.
Of all those right people, what would be the one trait that you think is a common theme around those people you'd want to work with?
As long as you work hard, do you know what I mean? I always say this, you know, I'll give you as much as you give me, you know what I mean? As long as, and and trust. You know, if I'm very, very fortunate. You know, the team I have. You know, if somebody phones in sick, I'm like, oh, they're definitely sick.
Yeah.
So we're really lucky like that. And again, it's building up that trust and good work ethic. And you know, like you said, you know, people make mistakes, but I know they haven't done it on purpose.
Yes.
So it's just about how they bounce back from that.
What is the toughest thing to get right in the kitchen? The sort of meal. What would be the sort of, what are the meal they go, if I get this right, they're going to love it, but it's tough to get it right.
Well, it's perception probably. So, you know, everybody's different. You know how people think certain things should be cooked a certain way. So, probably the toughest thing to get right is timings. You know, I always say this to my chefs: cooking's easy. It's just what you do with it. You know what I mean? You know, like personally speaking, when it comes to fish, I don't cook fish above a certain temperature. Luckily, people accept that, and you know, we serve a lot of raw fish on certain dishes, and
Just like a boiled egg, isn't it? You know, you get a boiled egg right the way somebody wants it. It's all about timing, isn't it?
Well,
It's a great example, Nigel.
I've never done it, but I know chefs that have said, you know, they get, you know, apprentice chefs or, you know, people applying for jobs, you know, make an omelette. You know, when you see if you can get an omelette right, then it's not something I've ever done, but there must be a reason behind it.
Get a boiled egg right the way you want it. It's a tough job. All about the timing.
I'm just thinking about how much prep must go in, like prep work, because if the pressure of time is there, the minute the client comes in and orders their food, you're right, they expect it within a certain period. And then they get twitchy, then they get frustrated, and they probably won't come back. So I assume then behind closed doors, an awful amount of prep work goes in so that you can deliver that food on time. Whether that's kind of, you know, not half cooking the food, but having it all ready to go so you can deliver on that time. Right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. You know, mise en place, it just basically means things in place, and everything has to be in place before you start.
Yep.
So, yeah, and then it's also, you know, having a really good front of house team, you know, because everybody associates restaurants with kitchens. You know, if you have a good front of house team, I can, you know, say, listen, we're a bit behind, you know,
time,
just smooth it over.
What is the timing? What is the sort of, do you have a certain amount of time?
I do personally. I set my menu on, you know, because we do a tasting menu, I try and get something at your table every 12 to 15 minutes. So something has to, and you know, if we do 100 covers on a Saturday night, it's a 10-course tasting menu, it's 1,000 plates. You know, it's a lot of food going out of the kitchen.
Have you got timers on that, or have you just in your mind you're keeping?
Because I run the pass, so I'm basically everything comes up to me. It all goes out.
Yeah.
So I've got timings on everything, and you could have, you know, 20 tables in at the same time.
Yeah.
Each on 10 courses, and each course is on a different time.
You still do as much cooking now as you used to then?
I'd love to do more cooking now. I mean, I love cooking, and it'll never change. You know, I don't necessarily put myself on one section. I'm always
Floating about.
like, and it's one of the things I kind of never want to change. You know, I know loads of people, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with not being in your kitchen, but I enjoy it. And Heene's is, you know, as I say, we opened it with, you know, nothing, and it's always going to be my #1 priority. We've opened other venues, but Heene's is, for me personally, my #1 priority. So, yeah, I'm always there. And plus, what else would I do?
Yeah. I love that. Is the pass like quality control, is it? So
Basically.
you're the last plate comes to you, it's like, nah,
Yeah.
send it back, not good enough.
And again, you know, the times have changed where it's like, that's not good enough to, sorry, can we please change this?
Fine. Good man. So, cheers, Tommy. Thanks for coming down to Nigel's Farm. Really enjoyed that chat. That's all we've got time for this week's Whistle Watch. If you're ever in Cardiff, make sure you pop into Heene's. No pressure, mate.
And if we pop in, there will be pressure.